the opportunity is going to be there for people to grow businesses, start businesses, et cetera. And I'm such an optimist for entrepreneurism because nothing fuels America like small businesses. It's where 70% of our jobs come from.
Welcome to Retire Smart with David Brooks. I'm Chip Maxwell. Well, David, we have many more profound things to get to, but I just can't resist asking a son of the South, grew up in Virginia, about 20 years in Florida. You've been here, 7 or 8 years now?
It'll be 8 years in about 3 weeks. It'll be 8 years, yeah.
When the temperature gets down into the single digits, any regrets about relocating?
Well, I've learned you do acclimate. The first year I was here, was the winter of 2017, and it was pretty cold. We had snow on the ground pretty much the entire time. I met you just that winter is when you and I met, and we were talking about, you always talking about on your radio show in the mornings, the dreadful snow. I was like, man, this is rough. We're gonna, but by the time you get through 2 or 3 seasons, you acclimate, and of course you learn to buy the right style of coats and clothing, etc. I've invested in Carhartt a lot, but I will tell you, we do still get about 10 days that it's just like, what am I doing? It's so cold when your windshield is negative 17, 18 or something like that, which it was yesterday morning walking my dog at 4:30 in the morning. It's crazy. And it was literally 40 degrees warmer one day later, walking them at 22 degrees, windshield.
Yeah, right.
And that's crazy to think of these swings. But, I've acclimated. We love seasons. And, I could just do without those 10 days where we're, negative temperatures.
Well, I think you were telling me that some of your relatives in the South, they've actually gotten more snow than we have here.
Yeah, so. My younger brother, who's a CPA by trade, Steve, our younger brother Steve, lives in Hayhira, Georgia. That's literally about 27 miles north of the Florida line on 75, and they got 2 inches of snow. Literally sent pictures to us this week. 2 inches of snow there is a very, very rare
that's
occurrence.
Armageddon down there, I suppose.
The whole town shut down. Nobody's doing anything. Businesses don't open. Schools don't open. Walmart doesn't open. I mean, they have no clue what to do. And then they got snow in South Carolina. My sister lives in South Carolina, so does my mom. They got some snow there. Where my dad in Pennsylvania, not as much snow. Here, not as much snow. Crazy, right? So anyway, and then my brother Lou, who lives in Northern Virginia, who's our compliance officer, who's out here, about half the time. He got some snow in Virginia more than we got here. So a strange year, and yet all our friends down in Kansas City, I was in Kansas City last week, they got like 10 inches. I mean, Kansas City was covered in snow when I was down there.
Well, David, I want to touch on this briefly, and then we'll get to the news. The big news, of course, being we have a new president. Well, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. More on that in a moment. But the State of the Market address, we're just inside of a month away now, February 21st at the Durham Museum. 2 sessions, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Now, as I say, it's almost a month away, but the seating will fill up. New twist this year, you are inviting the general public. There will be some seating.
We are waitlisting those that call right now because our clients get preference.
Only,
yes. Yep.
But the thing is, you better call and get on the wait list because that seating will be limited. Just 30 seconds, David. What is the State of the Market address?
Well, every year we like to give, sort of like the State of the Union the president will typically give. So we're usually a little behind that, but kind of where the economy is. We talk about what happened in the past year and what we think we may see from policy changes, sea changes, if you will, and thematic ideas that we think will come. I put up quite a few charts and graphs and kind of go into the weeds a little bit. This year we have a special presenter as well. And in future years, you're going to hear from more of the advisory team speaking at these events. But it's a packed 90-minute presentation typically where we give out a lot of useful information, and we get so many thank yous when clients hear from us afterwards. They'll let us know that it was valuable. So it's fun to do. It's a lot of effort to put in the presentation.
It's a real
work,
tour de force that you put on.
Yeah. So and again, this year we're going to have a special guest political commentator, Jeff Bush, who is a nonpartisan kind of political commentator on K Street there in D.C. will tell us what's going on behind the scenes in the legislature so that we can understand which of these policies or promises from the campaign trail have, what's the possibility that they're really going to happen, right? And because that will change direction, change markets directions, et cetera, and help us understand what we're going to expect.
It's like all of our events. There's no charge, there's no obligation, but you do need to register. So pay attention during the breaks and you'll get the info on how to register by phone or online. That's the State of the Market address coming up February 21st at the Durham Museum. Well, David, Donald Trump has been inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. And speaking of inaugurated, our guest, Josh Cheadle, in the next segment of the show, he has a pretty direct connection to the inauguration. I imagine you two will explore that a little bit. That's kind of fun. But here we go. And, some politicians are very measured in what they say. Well, Donald Trump declares the golden age of America starts right now. So here he comes. A headline from CNBC. Trump says he'll create external revenue service to collect tariffs and foreign revenue. And on the heels of that comes a proposal. Trump says he's considering a 10% tariff on China beginning as soon as February 1st. Here we go, David, right out of the chute.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see him kind of start to posture as he does. He's a master negotiator. And again, if you just read his very first book, it kind of lays out his thought process on negotiations. And I believe that the folks that are advising him, I think he's got a better team around him this time than when he took office last time. So what's going to most likely happen is he's going to do these stair steps on the tariffs. Maybe start at 2%. Are you going to give us anything better? Nope. Okay, it's 4% next month. Okay, it's 6%, 8%, 10%. He may start at 10% with China. Now, China's the big boy. As I mentioned, I think it was last week's show, I told you we had a $1.1 trillion trade deficit with China. In other words, we bought $1.1 trillion worth of their goods and services more than they bought from us. And that, unfortunately, it doesn't do well for American companies, right? And so he's going to try and level that playing field. And China is not in as strong a position as they once were to negotiate with them. So we're going to see how this plays out. And there's going to be a lot that unfolds. But he signed, I believe it was over 200 executive orders in the first 48 hours in office. And we're still filtering through them. So in this is the show, we're going to go through each one of those. But I'm excited because the era of deregulation is here. The era of entrepreneurship is here. Capitalism is back in America, all right? And I think that's a good thing because capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty over the world's history than any other form, of economics. And so this march we've been going to Marxism and socialism and governments, I think we're turning a corner here, at least in the near term. Now, I hope that stays long term, but again, the political pendulum swings left and it swings right, and we'll go the other direction. The concern, though, I have is I'm cautiously optimistic is the markets are really frothy here. The markets like the Trump inauguration, markets rallied up, which is great. The accounts are doing well, portfolios are doing well. But I would tell people, heed caution. Risk is something you want to really start to understand because if these tariffs start to enact and it changes the economics and it changes the earnings of these companies, at some point, the everything returns to the mean, right? And we just follow averages, et cetera, and the markets may adjust, and it may be severe, and you just need to be prepared for that. That's
maybe a little bit of a sugar rush or an adrenaline high right now.
Absolutely. I mean, we're at all-time highs, and so it's I wouldn't be running in to put a ton of new capital to work here. There's nothing wrong with hanging on to what you have, but you need to have some risk metrics, be proactive in your portfolio management. Now, speaking of the ERS, the External Revenue Service he wants to create. Now, he'll need Congress to do it. That's not something he can do, at least constitutionally, in my opinion, by a stroke of a pen with an executive order. But I love the idea of creating an External Revenue Service. It makes absolutely perfect sense. And that should collect tariffs or fees. It should collect any kind of revenue that the government expects to get from foreign enterprises that are importing goods and services into the United States. And whether that is a service that's coming electronically or a good or service that's coming in through one of the ports, why not have the U.S. government collect that revenue? But what I want to see is dollar for dollar, Chip. Every dollar we collect from the ERS should then be less dollars we need to collect from the IRS. And John Q. taxpayer, the middle class in particular, is the one where I think we need to get the tax breaks to. The lower income don't pay any income tax in our country, and a lot of people don't realize that. Look, 51% of Americans do not pay 1 penny in income tax. But the middle class are taking on about 70% of the bill in today, and those are the people that could use the break, which would expand our economy, and the rest is paid by the top 2% or so.
You mentioned the wave of executive orders issued by Trump. In fact, he set up a desk in a sports arena, the Capital One Arena, with the
Yeah, see that's Trump, right? That's pomp and circumstance. That's him being on full display. Not even wait to get to the Oval Office. Let's go right here and knock out a few of them here, then go back to the office, and he signed him in between the balls and the inaugural balls, et cetera. So I just think it was really him being the showman that he is, but it's optimistic for everyone to watch this happen. So it's a good thing.
No more green energy, no more climate agenda energy policies. We're going to maximize fossil fuels. You've got to return to work, no remote work. Forget the mandates on electric vehicles and so forth.
Knock out the EV credits, knock out the stuff that's not real. If electric vehicles, and I have several friends that own them, but if they are really worthwhile, then you'll pay for it, right? The economics should work all by themselves. There's no subsidies needed. No more picking winners and losers. The government subsidizing companies. We all remember Solyndra, right? $500 million flushed down the toilet on a solar company under the Obama administration, and Biden was doing more of the same. And so I don't want Trump to favor any of his companies. I just want the free markets to work, and they will if you let them. It's amazing. And the only reason tariffs, and again, you and I had a discussion on your old radio show going back, I guess, almost 8 years ago on this very topic with one of our advisors' son, Ian Swanson, who now works for Senator Ricketts, on the idea of tariffs. Yeah, I'm a free market guy, but you have to protect your sovereignty, and that's what tariffs do. And people don't realize, Chip, that's where 70% of our revenue came from since we became a country until 1912. 70% of our revenue came from tariffs.
When the income tax was enacted.
And then we flipped it and made the Americans pay. So I love the idea of flipping it back.
Up next, we have a team of a dozen licensed financial advisors at Retire Smart. We have a wrangler who spearheads the effort to keep all of our advisors on the cutting edge of excellence. His name is Josh Cheadle, and he joins us next on Retire Smart with David Brooks. Welcome back to Retire Smart with David Brooks. I'm Chip Maxwell. David Brooks is sought after nationally as a trainer of retirement planners, but he also constantly upgrades his own knowledge of best practices, and he demands the same of all the advisors on our team. The man who helps make that happen joins us now. David, please welcome Director of Advisory Services, Josh Cheadle.
All right. Thank you, Chip, so much. Yeah, in the studio for the first time. Josh Cheadle, financial advisor, and he's actually the Director of Advisory Services now here at Retire Smart. So welcome to the studio. And of course, it's about 2 months old, but welcome on board.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
So just for our listening audience, so we did a nationwide search. We have been growing leaps and bounds, and one of the things I've learned in growing myself as a leader and growing an organization, you got to have quality leadership in. And one of the areas we just did not have was somebody who's already led people in this industry with amongst our advisors. We have some amazing advisors, but none of them have ever been in the position to lead a group or a team as big as we have and are growing. And we hired 3 since you've been on board already. Yep. Yes. So you've got some big responsibilities on your shoulders now.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And it's an incredible opportunity and glad to be here, as I mentioned. But also, as you mentioned, right, Retire Smart, when I got here, had a group of fantastic advisors and support staff, as well as a desire to continue to grow and support those advisors that work with our clients every day. So,
I coach advisors from all over the country, and most of our listening audience knows that. We talk about, we have 22 coming in here in about a week for one of these masterminds that we host, where these other advisors come here to get trained. And I had a client in a review not that long ago, you train your competitors. There's so many people that need help. We don't feel like we have competitors in reality, but I don't mind helping other advisors. In fact, I've coached several advisors right here in the Omaha market to be better advisors. And so it's just embedded in us. We spend at least 10% of our week on all of our advisors training, and I needed somebody to help kind of take the baton from me because of my schedule getting so busy as we keep scaling and growing. And I've got to learn new responsibilities and roles, and that's been fun. But anyway, we are so blessed to have you on board. And I can tell you, the advisors, I was a little nervous, frankly, when I bring somebody outside into a leadership role. We love promoting from within. Is this going to work? Is this going to mesh well? Is there going to be any pushback? Man, it's been pretty smooth so far. So
really has.
I commend that to some of your skills, which we saw. And just so our listening audience know, in this world, you hire headhunters. We did a nationwide search, found candidates from all over the country, got really far down the rabbit hole with a candidate from the state of Texas, and lo and behold, not only did we find you living right here in Elkhorn with your family, but you were leading one of the national firms. You were basically in charge of the advisors for half the United States.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And so you've had some big responsibilities. Now, what made it even funnier is I realized that your parents have been my clients for about 4.5 years.
Which I didn't realize either until we got to the table at the end and realized together that my parents were clients.
And literally the day before I was going to present you the offer, your parents were in for their annual review. Right. And so I'm in there with one of my advisors, and I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag. So I ride the elevator down with him. Hey, can I ride down with you? And I kind of pull him aside. Hey, tell me about your son, Josh. And they're like looking at me like I got two heads. And it was a great conversation. I was like, hey, would it be a problem if I happen to offer your son a job? And they're like, you're kidding, right? And he's not told us. I was like, well, I don't think he knows your clients. Right. And then it turns out you remembered actually because when they first came on board asking you, because you have not had personal clients in a while, which of course is why you've not had a family. But anyway, we are so blessed to have you on board. And thanks, what a fit it's turned out to be. And like I said, you've helped me now hire 3 more advisors. We are hiring more, by the way. Any advisors listening out there, if you're not happy at your home, we are expanding rapidly and looking for some great experienced advisors and some advisor trainees. So both here and in our new Lincoln office. But anyway, so just tell us what it's been like your first couple of months on board.
The old analogy, right? We talk about a fire hose, and that's certainly what it's been. But it's about building relationships, right? It's important that the work that I do here directly benefits our clients, right? As well as the advisors that we work with. So it's my responsibility to help the advisors become better at providing tailored and up-to-date advice so our clients get the strategies that are both relevant and effective. And so building the relationships with the advisors, continuing to advance their skill sets and becoming better servers to our clients is been something that has been incredibly rewarding for the last couple months, and I look forward to it for the next several years.
Well, so we basically had our inauguration of you coming on board. And speaking of the inauguration, I got invited to Trump's inauguration and had to turn it down for some personal reasons, some other things that I already had conflicts. However, you were at the inauguration, and your daughter. You got to go, and your daughter was part of the Nebraska choir that sung for the inauguration.
What an amazing and chaotic experience for those young men and women of the Nebraska choir.
Especially when they had to shift everything outside, we were different spacing where parents would be. Now they're in the rotunda, kind of limited access.
Yep. So that's why I wasn't at the inauguration because they wouldn't let just the lowly parents get into the rotunda, but we had an opportunity to get to see the kids. And I don't want to say kids. There's certainly some non-traditional students at the University of Nebraska that are part of the choir, but see the members of the choir perform in several different places across D.C. The Basilica, which I hadn't been to before, is what I found out later the largest Catholic church in North America, and they performed in the middle of that. It was absolutely beautiful. They had an opportunity to perform in the rotunda for an audience the day before the actual inauguration, which the acoustics in there are unbelievable. Yeah. So really cool experience for these kids. They get to go, I keep saying kids, but of course my daughter is a kid to me, but they got a chance to be highlighted nationally, right? And on a day that, the political world is focused only on that location, they were on TV, and what a neat experience. We love the game 2 Truths and a Lie here, right?
Yeah.
We play that game all the time and get to know each other better. What a cool 2 Truths and a Lie my daughter will have for the rest of her life. I got to sing at the inauguration for the president. What a cool opportunity.
And man, what an event it was. I would tell you a lot of fanfare around it, and there's just euphoria in the small business world right now because of it. The NFIB, which I'm a member of, National Federation of Independent Business Owners, basically an organization that lobbies on behalf of entrepreneurs across the country. The spike they just had in the optimism of small business owners, and I told you, and part of our executive leadership team here, once we knew the leadership had won the election, I was like, all right, we're hiring 8 to 10 people. Right. Let's go. It's time to expand because, and I tell people on all sides of the political aisle, I don't really care about politics per se. I care about policy, right? I don't care about the party or the person. What's the policy? And we had policies that were continuing, especially in our industry, to hamper growth, to cost us more money, to not be able to serve more clients. And, it's just the opposite we think is going to happen under this administration. So I'm full bore expanding, hiring, and so glad we got you on board, and we're scaling in other ways. So I just think that we're seeing optimism across the board with entrepreneurs, and that is a good thing.
Yeah, we saw the markets react this week as well, right? I want to go back quickly and say thank you to Senator Deb Fischer and Chancellor Bennett for the opportunity to be a part of, and for my daughter to be a part of this opportunity of
and I got to tell you, we criticized Deb Fischer right on this program because she was a little late to the game with her campaign.
Right.
I don't, and actually had an independent just about unseat her. Now it turned out it wasn't quite as close, but didn't really put an active campaign together, and I criticized her right on this very show. However, I'm going to give her kudos right here, just along with you. Not only got the choir there, but guess what they ate for lunch? Good old Nebraska beef,
Right,
So Nebraska was extremely well represented, and now has a seat at the table of this administration. I think that bodes well for our farmers. I think it bodes well for our insurance and financial services industry, which we have a plethora of right here in Omaha. So I think it's good news for the state of Nebraska.
I agree. It was great to see it. Even Nebraskans weren't very familiar with Deb Fischer, and then to see her front and center on stage at the inauguration, and her impact to planning the inauguration with having the members of the university choir and the beef at the lunch, the inauguration lunch, and just being a big part of it. We saw her walk out of the White House. I believe it was with J.D. Vance. In preparation for the inauguration, just front and center throughout the entire, and represented herself and represented Nebraska extremely well, I thought.
Yep.
So I was proud to call her our senator that day, certainly.
Yeah, I got a couple of pictures and texts from some friends. They were at one of the inauguration balls where I was invited to go to it, and the black tie event where they're literally just buddy with JD Vance, and it was a pretty cool experience for them. So, but those opportunities will come around again. But I have a lot of excitement right now, just optimism towards lower tax environment for businesses potentially. Extending the tax cuts. I do not think they'll be made permanent. We'll talk a lot about that at our State of the Market update here coming up. But the opportunity is going to be there for people to grow businesses, start businesses, et cetera. And I'm such an optimist for entrepreneurism because nothing fuels America like small businesses. It's where 70% of our jobs come from. But anyway, so really cool experience having you go there. So we look forward to having you back on the show here in the near future. We're kind of out of time for this segment. So again, welcome aboard.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
All right, Chip, what do we have next?
Up next, you have questions. David Brooks has answers. Q&A is next on Retire Smart with David Brooks. Welcome back to Retire Smart with David Brooks. I'm Chip Maxwell. Into the Q&A we go. David, first question is about healthcare. I've heard you talk about healthcare being a major expense in retirement and how important it is to plan for it. But how do you plan and budget for something with so many unknown variables?
Well, the good news is once you roll off of major medical insurance, you're most likely going to, not 100%, but 98% of the clients are going to roll onto Medicare at age 65. So we have a class we teach on this. In fact, we just had one this past week.
Miles Morrissey on the show recently.
And it's called the ABCs of Medicare. We explain how it works. So you have to understand there are ways to cover your out-of-pocket by purchasing private insurance to cover what Medicare does not, because Medicare is about an 80-20 split. In other words, you're responsible for 20%, the government pays for 80%. And then there's some procedural things outside of that, and there's things long-term care that are not covered. But you can cover this with insurance. You can cover this with certain types of assets. There are certain riders you can put on insurance policies that you may already have and don't even know you can add a rider for a small fee and get additional coverage. But again, you don't know what you don't know. But it is the second biggest expense the average retiree will face throughout their retirement. In fact, it's about $314,000 in out-of-pocket expenses you're going to face for healthcare. So why not plan for it? Know where the income's going to cover that in your portfolio. Know how, now that's over taking you from age 65 to age 95 that you're going to spend those dollars. So it's over quite a period of time, and it exponentially grows the older you get, the more expensive this care gets. But we can plan for it, Chip, and we can pick out resources or products or things that may soften the blow. And you can self-insure for this. You can buy insurance to cover part of the load, or you can buy insurance to cover all of these projected expenses.
Well, and it's not just a blind leap. There is data out there that we analyze. I think I saw in Miles Morrissey's presentation recently on Medicare. Isn't it something like $600,000 is what a retiree will spend on healthcare?
A married couple, yes.
A married couple,
yeah. So it's about $317 for a single person.
It's not one size fits all, and we tailor our plans uniquely to each individual and each couple. But there is data that gives you some parameters, so it's not just a blind leap.
Well, not only that,
you can put together a plan.
If you're a client of ours,
study the data.
Many years prior to 65, one of the things we'll advocate for is if you have the availability, is while you're on major medical from your employer, you may have what's called an HSA available to you, a health savings account. This is the only triple tax-free account in America. You put money in there, you get to write off your income, just like a traditional IRA. It grows tax deferred, so you don't have to pay any taxes on the gains, and then it comes out, as long as you spend on a qualifying expense, 100% tax-free. And when you pay your Medicare Part B and D premiums to the federal government, those are qualifying expenses. So one of the ways we help people reduce that expense burden is cut up the tax bill.
Use
tax-free money to pay that $300,000 versus after tax money. That can shave 24% of that bill right there by understanding how to tax plan for the medical expenses in retirement. Again, you don't know what you don't know, and that's why you have to have a holistic plan that looks at all the major parts of a retirement, and we call it a SMART plan.
Well, the M in SMART is for medical and other health expenses, and of course, Medicare is right in the middle of all that. All right, David, next question is about estate planning. I understand the need to update beneficiaries after many years or after a life-changing event such as marriage, but I don't see what estate planning has to do with retirement. The estate plan is about what happens after I'm gone, not while I'm here. Aren't estate planning and retirement planning two different, separate projects?
Well,
not here, David.
No, not here at all, because estate planning is understanding, especially if you're married or have a partner, what happens if one of you is no longer here? Do you understand how important it is that the transfer of these assets goes to the people you want in the order that you want? The other thing that's very common out there today is we have a lot of second marriages. People will become widowers or divorcees and then remarry late in life, or take on a partner and decide for whatever their personal reason not to legally marry. And then they think they're going to leave assets to somebody, and they don't understand how the estate planning process works. It's also really important to understand the tax calculations on your estate. And again, some people are like, I'll be gone, I don't care. And I ask if that's really true. And in reality, it's not really true
for your
most
loved ones
people.
or your favorite causes. You want them to get blitzed and blindsided by taxes?
So, and not only by doing the estate planning up front, can you understand how you can get assets out of your name today and not pay taxes in your lifetime. So it's absolutely part of retirement planning, because like for my estate plan, we have some rules changing at the end of this year, and I have some very big decisions to make, because just so you understand, I'm a married person who has a substantial net worth by the average standard. I can legally move almost $30 million out of my estate before the end of this year and pay zero gift tax doing so, if I choose to do it. And we don't have time to get into this on the show, but that is what I mean by estate planning. And those assets are no longer my taxable assets. It's out of my estate, which reduces my tax liability significantly. I'm a relatively young man. I'd like to think I'm 56, I think. So I got to look. But, I'll be 57 this year. So I plan on being around for a long time. And if I can take tens of millions of dollars of assets, which I've acquired, and push them out of my estate and not personally have to worry about paying taxes on them again, I might want to consider doing that, right? Again, you don't know what you don't know. Hate to repeat it.
Another question, David, this one about real estate as an investment. I am thinking about going into the real estate business. Rental income seems like a good plan for supplemental income in retirement. What do you think? Well, David, I know you love real estate as an investment. It's not for the faint of heart, though.
Yeah, so you need to just understand how to do it. I would not go full bore like this is going to be my only income source. I own rental income, producing properties. I've done it for a long time. I love real estate, and I think there's going to be an amazing opportunity. We have a very high interest rate environment right now relative to the last 15 or 20 years, and so it's slowed down the transactions in real estate significantly. We're starting to see prices fall, especially in some of the overheated markets in South Florida, Dallas, Fort Worth. So I think there's going to be an amazing opportunity here. But you have to understand there's growth, there's liquidity, and there's safety. Those are the three attributes you need in anything you put your money into. We don't want to be 100% invested in any one asset class because of that. You can get two of those three things I just mentioned, growth, liquidity, and safety, in anything you put your money in. So real estate, we give up liquidity, but we get consistent growth that will double in value about every 18 years, and that's 140 years of data behind that. And it's going to cash flow, as you mentioned, as long as you have viable tenants in there. However, what happens if your tenant can't pay or doesn't pay? Do you understand the eviction process, et cetera? And there's some tricks you can learn there. But anyway, it's a wonderful investment as a portion of your asset allocation. And furthermore, I love it because it's the most tax advantageous asset you can purchase under our current tax code.
How so?
Well, your asset's going to appreciate, Chip. It's going to go up in value, but you also get what's called depreciation. You get to depreciate the improved property. You cannot depreciate land, but you can depreciate a building, which means you can take that depreciation and offset the income it's producing, so that income could be 100% tax-free, potentially, if you understand how to use what's called bonus depreciation, et cetera. And then what we have to do is show people how to replace that real estate every 7 to 12 years. We don't want you holding on the real estate long-term because the depreciation used up. And that's just, that's literally how Trump has built his wealth, and just understanding how this works. And so we love that you're looking to advocate into real estate. Just make sure you understand. And the other thing is, you do not, in today's world, you don't have to go buy the property, drive by, and manage it yourself. It can be completely done for you. We have package deals where we can do real estate exposure for our clients if they want. Again, I have moved upstream into more commercially managed real estate holdings personally, and have been selling some of my single family rentals just because I don't want to be the landlord anymore. But it's a great way, but you get an education along the way, and we're happy to give you some education on those things and understand. But as you mentioned, it's not for the faint of heart. Understand what you're committing to.
Up next, to ban or not to ban? That is the question regarding TikTok. What about the impact on financial markets? We explore that next on Retire Smart with David Brooks. Welcome back to Retire Smart with David Brooks. I'm Chip Maxwell. David, we are going to talk about TikTok. I want to get your take on TikTok. But first, you did send the team a chart on consumer credit. Well, you call it a nosedive to Great Recession levels. And I want to compare that with something you shared with me actually right before we sat down to record this show, that Procter & Gamble earnings beat estimates as shoppers buy more household staples. So on the one hand, some good news, but this chart about consumer credit, now I can see, now we're not talking about COVID. There's a huge drop for COVID, but we're out of COVID, and consumer credit went back up in 2021, 2022, but then in 2023 starts to wobble, and boom, there's the drop in 24. What's happening? Well,
Credit card companies are tightening the belt. In other words, access to credit is getting pulled away. So if you have like a credit card, let's say you had a $10,000 line of credit on your Visa. Well, if your income is in a certain level and your credit score is kind of in that mid-level from the, call it 580 to 680 point range, your FICO score, credit card companies are watching this closely because you're higher liability to them to potentially miss a payment, carry a bigger balance, go over your limit. And so they're trimming the amount of available credit that you may have. This happens first and foremost to people that are already overextended. So if, say, you had somebody had a $5,000 credit card limit, but they had a $5,600 balance, they can't charge anything new, and they're having to pay these minimum payments. They're getting behind, and so what they do is they cut the access to credit to maybe $3,500. So even if they paid down $2,000, they still couldn't use their credit card. And so what happens though is people feel trapped, Chip, and then they end up trying to use another credit card, and they defer this one more, and the delinquency rates, which we see, are going up. But this is showing you access to the credit. So if you're in a pinch and you need to go borrow money in an emergency, less dollars are going to be available. And this is on home lines of credit, credit cards, any kind of revolving credit. Even you might have a line of credit established at Nebraska Furniture Mart. I do. If my wife goes there, we have, because it's usually free interest or something for 6 months or whatever. So we have a line there. Mine's pretty liberal. It's pretty big, but they could trim that back just because they want to reduce their potential exposure to future delinquencies. And so this is a precursor to most likely a downturn in the consumer's ability to spend money.
Well, some of those consumers must have been spending it on toilet paper and laundry soap and stuff because Procter & Gamble did pretty well.
Well, and again, Procter & Gamble, what do they make? Deodorant, toothpaste, right? They make the items you're going to buy recessionary period or not. And so that's my point is we saw the downshift from Target to Walmart. We talked about that in recent shows. And you're seeing it play out here. What are the consumers? They're still buying, but what are they buying? They're not buying Louis Vuitton purses. Luxury goods are starting to fade. So the discretionary is getting harmed, but the staples you're still going to buy. And that's the old adage. You used to buy beer and cigarettes in recession. They actually went up in sales. People are depressed. They smoked more and they drank more, right? And so consumer staples, you're still going to buy soap, laundry detergent. You still have to do the household chores. And Procter & Gamble, I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to not find 20 items in your home that have Procter & Gamble on them, right? So they do better in rocky times because people load up, especially if there's a deal. I know, I'm very particular on certain products that I buy, and if they're on sale, I'll buy more of them, in multiple packs, et cetera. So they're benefiting from this downturn in the economic or consumer behavior we're seeing.
All right, David, on to TikTok. Our colleague John Lemley stopped by my office and we started chatting about this topic because there's so many tangents, so many different offshoots of this. It looked like TikTok was going to be banned. I have 7 children, ages 20 to 35, and they're active on TikTok. One of them was one of those who got so angry that he signed up for Red Note, the domestic Chinese. I said, that means the Chi-Coms are even more in your phone than they were before. He doesn't care. He was so angry about the prospective ban on TikTok. Now, I guess with Trump coming in and it's on, it's off, maybe it's going to happen, maybe not. But there are many things to talk about. But one, David, here's a USA Today headline, and this is reflective of a lot of headlines in the news on this aspect of it. TikTok ban could have consequences far beyond just the video app, and the reference here was to financial markets and some major players in the stock market. What's your take on that aspect of this?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. So first you understand why the ban. First of all, the user agreement, like when you sign up, most people don't read any of that, right? When you put a new app on your phone, and I got a new app or new phone here recently, we were talking about that, and it's working differently than the one that I've had for 8 years. So I'm trying to learn some new things. But when you download an app, you have to agree to the terms and policies of that app. TikTok, right in its agreement, will go in and find all the information in your phone, banking information, stock information, sensitive information, insurance data, and transport it to the Chinese government. It's clearly stated in the language of the user agreement. That is the reason for the federal ban, because they are owned primarily by a communist country that literally we are at economic war with. And so these people, I don't care, well, you should care. However, I get it. Economically, though, so who supports this ban? Well, the other social media apps that are competing with its time for sure love the idea of it banned. So they lobbied Congress, hey, this is a bad thing. So Congress, bipartisan, wrote a bill and passed it in both the House and Senate, and then President Biden signed it. The ban, however, it got appealed, went before the Supreme Court, and they said the ban is legit. And so therefore, it was set to go offline, which it did. And then Trump, through an executive order, which I don't think has the power to do this, but said, you know what, we'll give him a 75-day thing. So it came back online. And again, I don't have TikTok on my phone. I've certainly seen videos reposted in other social media apps from TikTok. But you needed, the lesson learned here. So your son getting for a further red app, come on. I mean, wake up, just so you can get the joy. Now, what's amazing about TikTok is the algorithm. It feeds up content in a way that keeps users engaged like we've never seen on an app. So you have competing things like Reels on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all these other, and of course X or Twitter, all these other social media platforms are losing out screen time. And again, you got to have more discipline to get off your phones, folks. But anyway, I was recently without a phone. My phone got destroyed on a recent trip to Kansas City. So I went 72 hours without a phone. While it's kind of nerve-wracking, it was liberating. I want to tell you, just 72 hours. I highly recommend everybody do that. Put your phone down, put it in a safe, and see if you can go 3 days without it.
A purge, some fasting.
You will survive, and it's
fasting.
amazing. But anyway, so economically, has far-reaching impacts because this could, if TikTok goes away, those eyeballs, that time, those ads, that revenue is going to go somewhere else. And so Facebook or Meta would be the biggest benefactor, at least by our initial analysis. Again, if TikTok does get sold, and I think that's ultimately what happens, is they have to break away. China wants the profits, and so they'll somehow divest and have it through some subsidiary in Hong Kong or something. But the data can't flow back. But Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank fame has offered up. Several hedge funds have offered up. So there's multiple bidders to purchase this, and most likely will sell between $25 and $50 billion. I mean, that's not small potatoes here, but there's some economic ramifications, but we'll have to wait and see what the outcome is.
David, we just have a minute or so left, but I want to squeeze this in. Whatever you think about Donald Trump as president, the news cycle will never be boring now for the next 4 years. And here's a Forbes headline. Donald Trump launches Dollar Trump meme coin. Token hits 9 billion market cap. I think it maybe even went up a little bit from there. Some are raising ethical concerns. Some people are saying this hurts rather than helps Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. What is your take on Trump and his meme coin?
Look, I mean, there's people that have made money. I don't really understand the meme coin. Someone bought just over $1 million. You can track these purchases. $1 million worth of this coin when it was 18 cents, and it went to $72. And this person had made a couple $100 million in 24 hours and hadn't cashed it out, right? And then it came back, I don't know, 20 or 40% from its highs, at least recently. And then Melania has one too, a meme coin that launched like 40 hours later.
Yes.
I would not invest in these things personally. I don't understand. There's zero value here. There's nothing to usually. It's just you're trading dollars to somebody else and see who gets caught last. And if you remember the 15 minutes of fame from the girl, the Hakto girl, whatever, she had a coin and cashed out on $50 million and basically suckered her followers. That's just what happened out of this because that's going to happen here. I would not invest it. I would highly encourage people to understand the amount of risk you're taking in these meme coins. And you remember we talked about Fart Coin literally recently on this show, going through the roof. But there's like 4 people that have come out. They cashed out and made themselves multimillionaires. So if you're willing to gamble, certainly you can hit a home run. But this is not for the faint of heart and certainly not going to be part of an asset allocation for our average retiree.
Well, that's the note we close on this week, folks. Please visit our events page at retiresmartomaha.com to see everything we currently offer. There's no charge, no obligation for our events, but you do need to register. You can do it online or by calling 402-369-7777. David, bring us home.
Hey, have a blessed and prosperous week.
Thank you for listening to Retire Smart with David Brooks. I'm Chip Maxwell. For David Brooks and the entire team at Retire Smart, have a great week.